Okay, let's look at a few of the problems that came up from the Connect Math assignment. So the question was, how does this formula become this formula? How do we solve for little b? This happens to be the formula for area of a trapezoid, and I know that because a trapezoid has a little base and a big base. It has a height at 90 degrees. And that's what that right angle is. Usually, actually, it's a dotted line because it's not part of the trapezoid. So you're doing half of the base plus the base. You're finding the average of the two bases, and then you're dividing by 2. So this is actually the same exact thing. When you take half of this, this is area equals the height times the base plus the base divided by 2. That's the same exact thing because you could say 1 times this, and then this has a denominator of 1. So if I want to solve for little b, get little b by itself, I would want to get rid of the fraction 1/2, which is the opposite of dividing by 2, right? So the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply both sides by 2. So if I multiply this side by 2, the 2's cancel, and I would do the same thing on this other side. That's where I'm going to get the 2a from. So now I have 2a equals h times big B plus little b. Now, you could distribute, but that's going to get stuff around the little b, and you want to get little b by itself. So ideally, instead of distributing the h, we could think, well, I'm multiplying by h. So what's the opposite of multiplying by h? Dividing by h. So if I divide this side by h, I want to divide this side by h. Now h divided by h is still 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So now I'm left with 2a divided by h equals, and notice I don't need those parentheses, b plus b, because I got rid of the multiplication. How could I get rid of the big B now? Yeah, subtract the big B from both sides. I have 2a divided by h minus big B equals little b. Now, the only reason why this is a little bit different than this one is because you see how they have it all under 1h? If I wanted to add these, or in this case, subtract them, I would need a common denominator. What's the denominator on b right now? 1. And so if I want to have a common denominator, I could multiply this by h over h, and then I would have a common denominator of h. And that would give me 2a over h minus b over h, bh over h equals little b. When I subtract fractions, I keep the denominator the same, and I add or subtract the numerators. So I get 2 big A minus BH over H. That's literally equivalent to, because a lot of people will see this and they'll want to cancel these H's. But the thing is, the H is dividing into both. So that is equivalent to 2A over H. And then if we did want to cancel that, it'd be minus B equals little b. So you could use either one, would be equivalent. Okay, let's look at problem number 8. And again, this is on Connect Math homework number 6, lesson 6. So this one says, one number is 5 more than another. Okay, if we just start there, one number is 5 more than another. We could start with our variable x, because they're going to ask us to find the two numbers. So we know x could be the first number, and then the other number is 5 more. So if we take x plus 5, this could be our second number. So the first thing we always want to do is called define the variables. Okay, and so we're saying we're assigning x the first. Since the second one is 5 more, we're just going x plus 5. Remember that we can only solve an equation that has one variable in it. Later on, we'll do, in Math 65, we'll do systems of equations, and we can use 2 variables, but then we have to do a substitution, so it's a little bit more complicated because we actually have to create 2 equations. Here it says the sum of 3 times the smaller number and 2 times the larger number is 40. So I'm taking 3 times the smaller number. Which one of these numbers is smaller? Well, actually, x plus 5 would be bigger, right? So the smaller number is x. So 3 times the smaller number is 3x. And what does this word sum mean? Add. Plus, so the sum of 3 times the smaller number, and, so that's going to be added, 2 times the larger number. So if we take 2 times the larger number, that's 2 times x plus 5, because this is the larger number, and 2 times it. The sum of these two things is 40. So usually the hardest part about the word problem is setting it up. But once we do have it set up, then it's not going to be as bad to solve. So what would we do next to solve? Yes, distribute. So we'd have 3x, there's nothing to change there, plus 2x plus 10 equals 40. And now, what should we do to solve? Absolutely, you'd combine like terms. That's exactly right. So how many x's do you have? Plus 10 equals 40. It's getting more simplified. What would we do next? We get 5x equals 30. And now? And we get x equals 6. So that means the first number is 6. What's the second number? Which is 11. And we could test that out by saying 3 times 6 plus 2 times 11. That should give us 40. So that's 18 plus 22, and that's 40. So that's a way to check and make sure they got the right answer. Yeah, any questions? Any more questions about that?